resistance is futile.
Boldly going where no show has gone before. This is the Week in Geek with David D. Squared, your source for geek and pop culture news that's trending now. Broadcasting from the Gregory Ricks & Associates Wealth Management Studios, here's D. Squared.
Greetings, people of Earth! This is the Week in Geek, your source for geek and pop culture news that's trending now. I'm your host, D. Squared. Let's talk to our guest, True, with BLERDFEST coming up this weekend, April 1st. True, look, so y'all started this back in 2019. Y'all had that first event, and then stupid-ass COVID popped up. And so you've been on a hiatus now, but now you're back. Tell the little folks about BLERDFEST as a whole and how it started back in 2019, man.
So I'm black and I'm nerdy, and I find that I'm most comfortable socially in spaces where those two things overlap.
Okay.
And I wasn't really finding a lot of that. If I went to nerdy events, I was the only chocolate chip in the cookie. If I would go to black events, that would be great, but, you don't necessarily want to be the nerdiest person in the room. So finding a space in which I could be both black and nerdy, blerdy, was important to me. And I found over the course of my life that often I see voids where cool things could be.
Right.
And so I put all my energy into trying to fill that void with something that that not only I think is cool, but something that I think can benefit a community and that other people would think was cool if it existed.
Well, it's funny. Like, I first heard the term blurred, I guess, about 10, 15 years ago. And I wasn't sure if it was, like a slight. I mean, really, because like that was something where it's just like, oh, you're black and you're a nerd. It's just okay, and but sometimes people take stuff and twist meanings though. But so I mean, like at first I didn't even want to say the word. I'm just like, is it okay to say blurred? Like, is it okay?
So I mean, just wanting to be in a space that didn't exist inspired me to turn to my community and say, hey, what do you think about this? Right. And people were like, yeah. And so a bunch of those people and I got together and we said, okay, so let's take this out of our heads and guide it with our hearts and create something in the real world that other people can experience. And on the surface, we're very similar to other established Comic Cons.
Okay.
But the thing that really separates us from those cons is that most cons look at being nerdy as like you have an interest in superheroes. And that's, sure, that's part of it.
Right,
but the black community has more needs than that. So we're looking at the term nerd or blurred in a very much more expansive way. Like you can be a science blurred, you can be a tech blurred, you can be an opera singer blurred, a historian, an archaeologist. There are lots of different ways to be a blurred, and so we're trying to incorporate those right. elements. For kids, we bring in an educational component where we're focusing on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So we're presenting educational content, writing workshops, tech workshops.
You have doctors that are going to be doing workshops and events and stuff like that?
Yeah, we're a 9-person planning committee with many more people beyond that, and a third of us have PhDs. We have an Oscar winner among us.
Sweet. Who?
Hannah Beekler.
Really?
Yes.
Damn.
She lives in New Orleans. She was our featured speaker in 2019. She was the first black person and the first woman to ever be nominated for an Oscar for production design.
Wow.
Just at the same time that Ruthie Carter was being nominated as the first black person, as the first woman for costume design. And they both won for the first Black Panther. And I saw that, and I found out she lived in New Orleans, and I was like, Hannah Beekler, we need you.
Is Wendell Pierce involved?
I have been trying to reach him. I've been trying all of my social channels to reach out to everyone that I can think of, Wendell Pierce amongst them.
Talk to me after the show.
I have not yet been able to get a hold of him.
We'll talk after the show.
And so, yeah, Hannah Beekler is involved for the same reason that everyone else is involved. And we all, everyone is donating their time for this because they're all ideologically aligned with the mission. Hannah Beekler, and this was years ago before the last 6 films that she's done, she was getting paid $1,000 a minute to do what she came and presented to us because she lives here and she saw what we were doing and wanted to be aligned with that. And so she's awesome. Still a creative consultant. I mean, she's busy, traveling the world and working on a bunch of films.
Right, but
when she's not doing that, she is involved for the same reason that Dr. Jennifer Bagneris, who runs the writing program at Dillard, which is one of the oldest.
I just did a PSA for them. They got they had a STEM thing yesterday.
Dillard, what? So you have these incredible people. You have Dr. Sunita Singh, who has a master's in public health, and she has a doctorate in public health as well. I hope I didn't mess that up. Sorry, Sunita. But she founded a nonprofit that uses AI to address poverty.
What?
I mean, if you go on our site, the very first page at blerdfestnola.com, you scroll down to the bottom after it says, what is a blerd? For people who don't know, what is Blerdfest? You go down to the bottom and it says, who is Blerdfest? And it talks about all of these incredible people that are putting this together. Like my friend, Dr. Crystal Bob Simple, who I've known for 26 years, I think. She's an incredible woman. She started a series of summer camps in Brooklyn, New York, that take these hundreds of kids and immerse them in an environment that essentially works on reading comprehension, but cloaked under mythological gameplay. So they dress up in costumes and they travel through various parks and they meet mythological characters being
freaking awesome.
She does that around the country. She does that for thousands of children. And essentially, she's getting them to better their reading comprehension skills by tying them into mythology. And she and a local author named Bernice McFadden, who I also know from Brooklyn before I moved down to New Orleans, they are working on this writing program called it's a writing workshop called Every Hero Needs a Monster. Okay. And it has been sent out to educators around the city. It's essentially a writing workshop for kids and contest in which they can write a story, submit it to them, workshop it in the festival, and then get a cash prize at the end. And then have their work published and go out to kids in these camps around the country.
Dude, this is amazing, man.
Really.
It is. I wish I could swear. Because I would say it is bleeping amazing.
Well, I mean, I think that, in our mind, we're always just kind of thinking cons, and it's always kind of like, basically it's a shopping mall, and here's some famous celebrities and stars, here's some money, take a picture. But you've kind of basically made it an entire immersive sort of learning experience and raising people up and giving them skills, as opposed to like, here's your picture with somebody famous. Here, you want to buy a comic book, buy a comic book. This is deeper and more meaningful than that.
I go to cons because, I want to see what they're doing. I want to support.
Right.
And a lot of them kind of feel like there is like a room with a bunch of people saying like, okay, so to really penetrate this market, we need to get into this city and get this venue, get these stars, sell this merchandise. Like, how do we capitalize on this interest? And how do we just sort of...
My biggest knock on a lot of the cons has always been it seems rather antiseptic, where it's just kind of like here you go, here's a menu, you may order from it. Exactly. But it seems like some of the old school cons that we grew up with, it was just an event. I mean, pre-internet, you can only see your friends at conventions like that. And so now, but this seems like it's really more of a community event, but also you don't have to like a comic book to enjoy yourself and learn something at BLERDFest.
Yeah, one of the things that people who don't consider themselves nerds or blerds will sometimes say is like, well, I'm not necessarily into that whole superhero stuff. And I'm like, yeah, and not all of us are either, which is why our panelists are, like Kenitha Harrington is an archaeologist / anthropologist who does research on 1700s and 1800s African Americans in New Orleans. She actually, as a graduate student, found Marie Laveau's husband, who had been dead and gone for 200 years and lost to history. She traced the lines and the dots, and she came up with a plausible explanation of where he is now and what happened to him. And she is one of our speakers in our writers panel because she's writing a book on Marie Laveau.
Dude, all right, this is awesome. So BLERDFest next weekend, April 1st. Now, where can people get more information, find the educational tracks that y'all are doing, the events that y'all are doing? Like, I'm assuming y'all have the whole shebang, all the panels up there. Where
the whole shebang is at blerdfestnola.com, BLERDFESTNOLA.com. And we're BLERDFest NOLA on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Site is best. The site is really it looks really nice. Like, Facebook, you're like, their format with a couple of your pictures. But like the site is a more accurate representation of the vibe that we're going for, who we are, what we're about, and why you should be down with us.
Dude, I love it. And I feel we keep talking about archaeologists. I feel like we need to go to break with Indiana Jones, man.
Yes, absolutely.
BLERDFest next weekend, April 1st, blerdfestnola.com. Go on out there and just enjoy, soak in the culture.
You did fine. You did really well. It was a great interview.
Thank you.
And I mean, it sounds like a hell of an event.
It was great the first time. It was tiny. We had like 250 people, but everyone loved it. Everyone was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is great. Like seeing Hannah Beekler show how they went from blank piece of paper to Wakanda was just...
It's gotta be amazing.
Everything she said was like, I'm not supposed to be showing you this, but
But
here's an image of my initial sketch.